You're listening to the Stay Sore Podcast.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Stay Sore Podcast. I'm your host, Bo Skitsko, and today we're going to talk about supplements. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can probably see all the supplements behind us because we're in a supplement store, and the owner, Michael Ventresca.
Yep.
Am I saying this right?
That works, yeah.
Yes, so he owns for transparency, he owns a supplement store. I have a supplement line, just so you know, that we know a thing or two, maybe even though we're not nutritionists.
Correct.
You're not?
Correct.
Yes, but we know a thing or two probably about supplements, and if anything, we can share some ideas of good supplements, bad supplements, what to look out for, and just, do you even need supplements? But before we start, what's your background? Introduce yourself real quick.
Thanks. So, my brother and I started this store, Vital Choice, back in 1998.
Okay.
Prior to that, we were working with my father for a couple years in an information organization. My dad was a doctor, oral surgeon, but my dad believed that you could not be truly healthy if you didn't have good digestion. That was kind of his thing. He was really into what we now would call integrative medicine, okay? Well, as an oral surgeon, he felt that digestion starts in the mouth. So he saw his role as larger than specialist, larger than surgeon. He saw his role as doctor of healing, of health.
I love it.
So he became an expert in it. He would lecture on nutrition. I remember as a little kid, it was, as I was in sports, he was take this, take that, trying to nourish my body, right? He talked about whole food vitamins, which is a little bit different than what a lot of people have known about. And so when I graduated from college, he wanted to do a practitioner-based organization that we could create information, like little packets, to take to practitioners and educate them so that they would have a good background when their patients came in and asked them about natural health, because he knew it was coming. He saw in the 80s and in the early 90s that this was coming. So Dave and I, my brother, did that with him for several years. So we kind of got schooled in that way, just learning and helping with these packets and going into practitioners. And then after a couple years, it wasn't doing much. And so Dave and I kind of looked at each other and said, we've been studying this stuff for a couple years. We want to do something with it? And we decided, why not take that kind of emphasis on information and education and open a little health food store. So that's what we did in 1998, and that was kind of the genesis of Vital Choice, and that's kind of where we got our start, was really thanks to our father, who was super informed and really an expert in this area.
Awesome. That's an awesome story, and I believe totally in the idea that food is medicine, and
Absolutely.
You can look at supplements as food or a supplement, but it still goes into your mouth, it starts digesting and acting upon your whole body.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
So I just mentioned that food or supplements. Is there a difference? Do you even need supplements? What if you eat healthy?
So, good question.
Just your opinion, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think of supplements being helpful to us in two ways, okay? You've got your foundational nutritional supplements, and then you have your really targeted need supplements. So, you mentioned food as medicine. So let's kind of start with that second one. So why would we need to supplement? Well, food as medicine. We know that, and science is catching up with historical use. We know now there are tons of active phytochemicals and active nutrients in foods. We know ginger has over 20 anti-inflammatories. We know turmeric has powerful anti-inflammatories. So, the original aspirin was from white willow, right? They would take white willow, and they found that it had the same properties, and then science figured out a way to say, well, we can't patent a plant, but if we come up with the chemical that this plant is producing and we create it artificially, that's now a man-made product, a human-made product. We can now patent this and make money off of it. Okay, so basically, to me, there are two reasons. Again, you've got your food as medicine. So if you have a targeted issue, and there are now studies that support, we'll take this nutrient for this and for that. For me, I rather go that route first. Like I said, my dad was into integrative medicine, so I believe there's a role for allopathic medicine. But I think if we can get there nutritionally and treat something first with a supplement that is validated scientifically, that is good quality, then we've seen the results here in the store. I mean, I've had feedback from customers over the last 20-some years that have come back and said, I firmly believe, and I've seen in blood tests, this has changed my life. And then you have the other kind of more basic role of supplements for me, which is foundational nutrition. As you said, I eat really healthy. Do I need them? Maybe not. But most of us here in the United States, we're not eating a diet that is gap free. We've got gaps in our diets. You're smiling, so you know, right? If you look at the average American or Western diet, we eat a ton of pro-inflammatory compounds. So we're eating dairy, and we're eating wheat, and we're eating corn-fed meat. Grass-fed meat's a little bit better, but corn-fed meat, these animals are rich in the pro-inflammatory compounds. We eat them, we're pro-inflammatory. And we know that, I think it's something like 80% of diseases are inflammatory related. So if we were eating, ginger and turmeric regularly like other cultures, if we were drinking green tea predominantly, as opposed to, let's say, coffee or sugar, sugar, I didn't even mention sugar is a huge inflammatory compound, right? Producer.
Usually I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you real quick.
No, please.
Because every time client comes in, oh, my knees are aching today. What did you do yesterday? Well, I went to a party, I had some cake and maybe some pizza and then sugary drinks. Well, that's why your knees ache. And they don't connect those two. Sugar equals inflammation equals aches and pains.
And then ultimately, we know can equal disease.
Oh, of course. That's
long term. And so that's why, I've written some articles in the past talking about how does a stubbed toe lead to cancer. The scary truth is it's possible because you have this inflammatory response, which is a good thing. Inflammation is there to protect us. It's part of the immune. Well, we won't get into that too much, but the point is it's there as part of our system, healing process. And when we put too much of this pro-inflammatory stuff in our body, it's like having a little campfire that's super helpful, and then you throw gasoline on it and it burns the forest. So where do supplements come in? It's in filling those gaps. So if your diet maybe doesn't have a ton of anti-inflammatory compounds, maybe you throw something in there. If you're not eating fish a couple times a week, a fatty fish, a wild-caught fatty fish, maybe take a fish oil. So those are the kind of, for me, yes, supplementation is a good thing and is necessary for foundational and for targeted support. But if your diet is perfect, probably not. You probably don't need supplements. I mean, that's just my take. I don't know your take.
I agree with you, but perfect is a really, really strong word.
Exactly. Well, I know.
And the other thing is, I don't know if you have thought about it or if you talked to somebody about this, but I think the problem nowadays becomes like, let's say 200-300 years ago, or even like I remember, I'm from the Eastern Europe. I'm an immigrant, and my great-grandparents, they had the rule like every few years, your soil, part of the soil has to rest to replenish and rebuild the nutrients inside the ground. So we plant only on this part of our acres and acres of farms, right? And this part has to rest to re-nourish like the minerals, and all of that stuff. And nowadays, it's just go, go, go. We need production, production, production. A lot of foods nowadays even grow just in plasticky little thingies, not even in the ground itself. So we eat, I believe, nowadays when we go to the grocery store, we eat food that is very poor. A tomato is not a tomato is not a tomato, right? We know tomatoes are like quote unquote superfoods. It's not a legit scientific word.
A real tomato is
a real tomato, right? But those tomatoes have less and less and less nourishment. In biblical times, there was a law: every 7th year, your soil, your ground has to rest. There was a reason for that. And nowadays, it's just produce. So we can think we eat perfect, but those foods are quite often becoming more and more empty foods.
Well, and you're absolutely right. I couldn't agree with you more. And in fact, a lot of people take their multivitamin. There are a lot of nutritional experts that believe that actually you may be better served taking a multi-mineral because our soils are so depleted. And in fact, the average American magnesium, it does over 300 different actions in the body, right? Without magnesium, you don't do these things. So your soil is so depleted now in these minerals that you're right. The foods we're getting that we think are healthy, they don't have what they used to. And they've done studies on this. They've looked at the mineral content of foods versus 80, 100 years ago, and it's strikingly different. So there's no doubt, you're absolutely right.
So so we just talked about multivitamin. Let's say I want a very basic multivitamin to cover like you said gaps. So my multivitamin. So there's different multivitamins. One costs $9 for a month.
Sure.
And one costs $50 for a month. is there a difference? Is it just making more money for the producer, for the owner of the company?
No, no.
But yeah, what's your opinion?
So my take on that is, like anything, you have all different types of how do you prepare this. So we could go into a 45-minute discussion on it, and I won't. But the standard multivitamin that you might pick up at a big box store, at a discount store, these are what are called USP, United States Pharmacopoeia. They are isolated versions of what you might find in food. Here's what I mean. If you eat an orange or a pepper, you're getting vitamin C. Vitamin C is a compound. It has a whole bunch of stuff. If we look at it under a microscope, it looks a certain way. If you grab ascorbic acid, which a lot of people probably think of as vitamin C, they pick up their bottle, it says vitamin C as ascorbic acid.
Kind of the cheapest version of vitamin C, quote unquote.
Yeah, well, it's actually a part of vitamin C. It's not vitamin C. It is if we picture a pie shell, it's the shell. I'm sorry, if we picture a pie, it's the shell.
Okay.
It's not the filling. It's not anything else that goes in there. So if we're going out to dinner, and I know you said don't eat sugar, but it's my analogy.
Yeah.
If I give you a pie versus I give you a pie shell, or I give you the flour, that's probably even better way to look at it. I give you the flour and I say these are the same. No, the flour's in the pie, but give me the pie, right?
Yeah.
So that's what ascorbic acid is. It has benefit, but it doesn't have the benefit of a whole food. What am I getting at? There are all different types of preparations of vitamins out there. There are the ascorbic acids. There are the whole food vitamin C's. So when you look at a multivitamin, there are ways to tell whether or not you're getting a USP isolate, which is good, but you got to take a high dose and you got to make sure that there are no binders, fillers, artificial colors. If you look at some of the most popular one-a-day type vitamins.
I want to roll my eyes right now, but I get it.
They've got synthetic versions. They don't even have real like D-alpha tocopherol. They have DL-alpha. It's very complicated, but you've got dextrose. Why are you? It's not chewable. Why are you putting sugar in it? Right?
I know.
Artificial this, artificial that. So you've got your USPs, but then if you go up, then you have the USPs where they've added some food, which is cool. You're going to increase the body's ability to recognize and use. And then you've got what we call whole food, or not what we call, but what is called a whole food vitamin. This is a vitamin that's created in a way where you're actually getting the whole vitamin C compound.
Okay.
So you get a much more active. And that's why we're taking supplements, right? We're taking supplements to fill these gaps and to get something out of them. And a whole food type vitamin is going to give you by far the best utilization, not absorption, but utilization. You're going to get both, and that's super important. So does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. Right? And just for the listeners or viewers, depending if you're watching on YouTube or listening on any podcast platforms, by the way, subscribe. But for transparency, we have not talked before this. I don't know you. We just shook hands for the first time.
Correct.
And you said all these things that I believe in, and like just in my line has a multivitamin in it, and it's a whole food-based multivitamin because I, exactly like you, believe in all the same things, that a synthetic version copy of a vitamin versus a real food has completely different effects on your body. So, and like you mentioned before, the turmerics, the ginger, and the white willow, all this stuff, whole food, I think, there's a reason why natural sounds so good, because it's kind of is good. But that brings me to the next topic. So there's supplements and even foods on shelves that say natural, and then there's synthetic, and then there's organic, and then there's just nothing, just here, vitamin C. So how can a non-educated, just regular person, my clients from my fitness studio, can they navigate through all these fancy words? Is there a way?
Well, you know, for the most part, there is something to looking at the source of who is this company. You know, I hate to say it because I have a vested interest. As you said, I have a store.
I understand.
But I would say, you know, go to a physical location, go to a human, a person that you can talk to explain these things. There are better lines out there than other lines. You know, there are lines that have been doing this for ages. They have the track record to prove that they know where they're sourcing. There's transparency, because you can get a ginger, and just because it says ginger on the label doesn't mean it's like going to a fast food restaurant versus going to a Michelin star restaurant. How they care for their food, how they prepare their food will give you a strikingly different product. You can say it's apple, but was it picked when it was ripe? How was it transported? How was it stored? So it can be difficult if you don't know some of these brands to look for. But what would I look for without getting too technical, certainly you can look for some of the badges that are on the products now. If you see USDA organic, if you see non-GMO project verified, if you see some of those badges, that's good. It's not perfect because you can get a tomato that's organic that has virtually no nutrients in it. So it's not a perfect way. But in terms of looking for a whole food vitamin, there are telltale signs on the label. If it says, vitamin C from oranges, and then they have to legally tell you the amount of ascorbic acid in it, that's something that's changed in the last five years or so. It used to just say vitamin C from oranges. Now they have to see vitamin C from oranges, ascorbic acid 80 milligrams or something like that. So if you see those whole food terms, or if it says from organic oranges, now we're getting closer.
Okay.
So there are ways to look on a label, but it can be difficult because these companies out there know what the buzzwords are, right? And so if I'm at big box store, I can put natural, I can put from oranges, and it might have a drop of orange and then just a vat of ascorbic acid powder.
So it's more marketing tools.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Yeah, and with the internet now, yeah.
Unfortunately, what I've learned for the past over a decade now that I've been in this industry is that natural doesn't mean anything.
No, it doesn't. It's like light. If they say, light beer, it could literally be the color of the beer. It has there's no legal rule that says it has to be lower calorie so natural is the exact same way.
And it's kind of like making me mad because it's so misleading.
Absolutely.
It's natural, yeah, because it exists. That's why it's natural.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
So as you have even more so experience in the supplement world and industry, anything you would love for the listeners, customers, and just general people to know that you think they're misled or don't know? Anything you would like them to know?
Can I give you a couple?
Yeah, go ahead. The more the better.
I can be long-winded. I don't know what the running time is on our video, but a couple things. Number one, I hear a lot in this industry, well, that's not FDA approved, so is it safe? Or that's not safe, or my doctor says it's not safe. We work with a lot of practitioners actually that send people in.
Supplements, are they FDA approved?
They're not FDA approved, but what does that mean? It's a different burden of proof. Supplements do not have to prove efficacy, meaning they don't have to prove that it reduces X. But the FDA, what people don't know is the FDA does have purview or control over this industry in as much as if something is shown to be unnecessarily risky or unsafe, they have the right to pull it from the market, and they've done it. Are you familiar with ephedra at all? Do you remember ephedra? Yes. Ephedra used to be part of Chinese, or it's part of traditional Chinese medicine. It was used to treat asthma. It was wonderful, and when that got pulled, because people had found in higher doses it was a great stimulant for the metabolism, so it was helping people lose weight. There were some dangerous issues that happened, and so the FDA pulled it. And a lot of people were so disappointed because they said, that's the only natural product that helped with my asthma. So the point is the FDA does have some control over our industry. So when people say, oh, it's not safe, it's not FDA approved, it's not approved the way the drug is, but I think last time I read, drugs are the 4th leading killer in our country. So drugs, just because they're approved doesn't mean they're safe, right? Well, supplements don't have to prove that they're effective, but if they're not safe, the FDA can pull them, and they've done it. Number two, this is kind of this isn't about nutrition as much as it is buyer beware these days. As we said, there's a ton of marketing out there. And I've even been told recently, there's some great brands, like Nordic Naturals is a great brand of fish oil.
Yeah, I love that.
I recently got a communication from them saying they are researching counterfeit products that are available online. It looks like Nordic.
Oh, wow.
And it's like you might buy it from a big retailer online. Not a retailer, a big, let's just say, the big site. You know what I mean.
Yes.
And they're finding counterfeit products. They're not created by Nordic Naturals. So a store like ours, I'm sure you know who you're buying it from.
I know my supplier.
You're getting it from the people who make
source.
it. And so there's some control there. And then the final thing I tell people is when we look at natural foods, we mentioned it, but I want to get into it one more time. When we look at ginger and turmeric and some of these other items, it's not all created equal. And just because it says turmeric on the bottle, understand that you can get a wildly different preparation, a wildly different quality of product. And that translates, if we go to a restaurant, into flavor, but that also translates into effectiveness. So if I'm using a supplement from Foundational Nutrition, or I'm using a supplement for a targeted response, I want to make sure that I'm taking it and that it is going to be effective. And so understand that just because something says, I've had people come in and say, oh, I've tried that before, valerian for sleep. I've tried it before, it doesn't work for me. Well, where'd you get it? And if they say, well, I picked it up at, big box store. It's like, just because it says valerian on the bottle doesn't mean it says
And also,
potent.
unfortunately, I'm going to add, and let me know if you agree with this or not, but even the same company, like 1 year, the harvest was more potent than another year, if it's a whole food-based supplement, right?
That is true.
So just like with wines, certain years
Yes.
of wine are better than other years because of the weather, the rain, and whatever.
That's
So-
true. You will have some variation, but a lot of the best companies I found, they do regular batch testing and they do assays. And if you ask them, they will provide assays, not only showing whether it's chemical-free, herbicide-free, pesticide-free, but they'll be able to show you where some of their key nutrients are.
I understand.
So you will be able to say, so that's not to say, if you get a whole food vitamin and it says it has 100 or 1,000 IUs of vitamin D3, it has 1,000 IUs of D3 because they're assaying that to make sure, because that's something that the FTC has control over. If you don't meet label claims, you can get in trouble. And it happens in our industry, but it almost never happens with the reputable type brands that you find in stores.
Mostly it happens with, I found my experiences, a lot of times it happens with performance supplements or sports supplements.
Yes, and those are often adulterated as well. You'll find actual, drugs in there.
Exactly.
So yeah, and that's when you buy them online typically. So and you want to avoid that kind of thing. Absolutely.
So, and you said, you mentioned, I think, the word testing. So last question about quality. How do you feel about third-party testing?
I think it's essential. A lot of companies, some of the good quality companies, you would hope that they do QI in-house, right? But they should farm it out as well.
Yes.
It's the only way to be sure. But I will say there are companies in our industry that are doing DNA level testing, because you have to understand, when these products are created, in some cases, there are a couple brands that actually do it themselves. They're harvesting from local farmers to create these whole foods. But in many cases, when we do look at some of the even good quality products, they're getting huge vats of a dried herb. They're getting huge vats, and it says what it is on the label. Well, there have been times when, you might wonder why a product is out of stock at a store. Sometimes it's because it came into the manufacturer, they tested it, and they said, we're rejecting this shipment. It's not what it says it is. It's not as potent as it should be. It's not as pure as it should be, and they reject it. And when you reject a massive, vat of this stuff, then all of a sudden now it throws an entire product. It might have been one of 20 ingredients, and now they can't make it. And guess what happens to that vat that was rejected?
What?
It's sold to a lower tier brand that will accept it.
I understand what
And
you're
that's where valerian from one company is less effective than valerian from another. So
understand.
I've heard of these stories in our industry where company A, top tier company, rejects it. The company who sold it says, okay, and they go to tier 2 or tier 3 and say, do you want it? Here's a lower price. And it's bought and put into a product. So, that's where you look for these established brands, transparency, all that good stuff, third-party testing.
Third party, yeah, and I just did it myself. With my brand.
Oh,
Third
cool.
party testing, very, very important. It's expensive.
Yeah.
It goes into the price of the product, but you pay what you get what you pay for.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
So, Mike, thank you so much for educating people, educating me about supplements, safety, good versus bad, and all the marketing. Where can people find your store?
Well, I'm here in North Royalton, so if you can find us online, it's probably the easiest way. So if you go to our website, it's vchoice.com.
vchoice.com.
The letter V, yeah.
Okay, I'll link
vchoice.com.
it in the description.
Yeah, thank
below.
you. Yeah. And we sell the products online. We have information online, and of course, though, what we really do well is we work here in the store with customers on a
Love
regular
the store,
basis.
and I didn't even know you, but I have been here many, many times for many years now.
Thank you.
Before I got to know you, I just loved the store, and I love that the focus is not so much on like, let's burn some fat. It's more like, let's get healthy.
Yep,
And I love
absolutely.
that aspect, because
Absolutely.
a healthy body always looks better.
Well, it goes all the way back to what Dad preached when we were little kids. Sound health, sound digestion, be healthy. It wasn't about cut weight necessarily. It was about be healthy. For some people, it's cut weight. For some people, it's totally different need. So yeah.
Thanks, Mike, for your time, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. And if you have questions for Mike, I'll link his information in the description. And maybe if you have enough questions, I'll meet up with you again for
Sounds
another
good.
episode.
Yeah, that'd be
All right.
great.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, man.